The hair was there, staving. Staving. The hair was there, staving. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to True Crime Loser. Hope you had a good day off yesterday. I just needed a day. But good to be back. Shout out to my people in the UK. I see you. I see it here, you guys. Thank you for watching. True Crime Loser is a global show. One thing I do think would be really cool is if I can somehow keep this channel growing is to do live True Crime Losers show. Like people that do podcasts go around and do live episodes. Why not True Crime Loser? Huh? True Crime Loser World Tour. Can you see it? I think I can see it. All right, let's get into this. So today, I am finished. After today, I should be finished with the entire interrogation. I slogged through the whole thing, baby. Thanks for being there. Couldn't have done it without you guys. All right, so today we start with... So Chris asked for his dad. Can I talk to my dad? And they were like, yeah, sure. Bring in Ronnie. Then we went over the polygraph. Failed it. Too much emotion. And then they kind of talk back and forth. Chris is doing a thing that I had never seen before. I call it the lie cry. That's where you're crying, but also lying at the same time. I don't know if I've ever done a lie cry, but it's a Chris Watts trademark, the lie cry. And then Graham and Tammy come back in. And the goal, once they're back in, is they're kind of giving Chris that you've done the hard part now. And just tell us where they are. You've told us you killed Shannon. You told us that Shannon killed the girls. We don't believe you. But now you just got to tell us where they are so we can find them. And Tammy goes, you've done the hard part. Now just tell us where they are. Well, that sounds simple enough. But Chris just figured he'd get himself in one more pickle before he just goes and lives in his shitbox. And I don't know why. It doesn't look fun to lie to Graham and Tammy. I mean, they're too good. Someone had made a comment that it's got to be rough to be Tammy's kids because they try to lie to their mom and she just stares at them for a minute and they're just like, I actually ate all the cookies. I'm sorry. It doesn't look fun to lie to Tammy. So I don't know why. If I were Chris, I would have just, after I would have just said I killed Shannon, I would have just said, I'm done. Bring me to a cell. I need a lawyer, you know? Just out of the sole fact of just not wanting to sit there and go through it anymore. So the last pickle that he's in is he is trying to stand strong that Shannon did it, right? That he told Shannon we're separating, even though he had already brought it up. So it doesn't really make any sense that she already knew they were probably going to separate, and then just this time she decided to murder her children. Again, like every story that Chris Watts goes with, this wasn't even entertained. It was just like, oh, Chris, cool, another thing that you're saying. Good job, buddy. And the reason that Chris really doesn't want to say where they are is because the story goes out the window. Because you can't say, I was just loading my truck with my water bottle and my computers and this stupid story that I just keep saying. And then I saw my evil wife in the monitors killing my children and I ran up there. They were already blue and dead, and I got on top of Shannon and did that. It's like, okay, maybe if that happened, you would have collapsed on the floor, calling 911, begging them to get there to save your kids, and you'd probably want him to save your wife too, as if it was just like a blind rage. But the last thing you would do is wrap everybody up in a blanket, drive them out to an oil whatever, and jam them into tanks. So you could tell Chris really doesn't want to bring up that he shoved him in the tank. So they're just like, Chris, just, you already said you did it, so you just tell us where they are, and then we can get your family out of the outside. We can just bring them in and be done with this. And Chris is just going, no, they're gone. There's no bringing them back. I didn't know what to fucking do. And Tammany and Grandma are just kind of looking at him like, what do you mean there's no bringing them back? You definitely can bring them back. We can't just, because you say there's no bringing them back, just go with that. We're the FBI, Chris. We got to bring back your dead family. And he's like, there's no bringing them back. And you could just tell he's like, dang it. There's no arguing that you're not a complete and total lizard face if you jam your dead kids in oil tanks. And Chris knows that. I would say this is we get to kind of see where Chris has been thinking about this whole time, because he mentions to his dad, he's like, I ruined everything. And it's hard to argue with that, Chris. That's one of the truest things you've said this whole time. And then Graham and Tammy like leave again, and he actually tells Ronnie was like, did you just bury them out there? And he was like, Shannon is. And then he's like, I feel freaking horrible. I put the kids they're in oil tanks. And, Chris is just saying, like, this is the last time I'm going to see the light of day. Like, he's just sitting there for the first time, kind of seems like he knows exactly what's happening. He kind of understands. And if it's already hitting him, like, I ruined everything and nothing is ever going to be the same. Dang. If that's hitting him already right there, I can't imagine where he's at right now in prison. This has just got to be the worst time for him in prison, which it's good, because I think after a year or two, I think that people get used to prison in a way. Never like where it's good, but human beings can get used to anything. And once he gets his routine down, he'll probably kind of settle into some kind of groove in a way. But now he still remembers driving that work truck as the sun came up out to some location to work, and driving home to see his beautiful family, and eating hard-boiled eggs that Shannon made. Like, he's probably just sitting there being like, God, I blew it. Man, just for some side piece that I worked with. It's like, how can you have such a short-term outlook on everything? It's like, what are the chances that him and Nicole even make it 2 more months? You know, it's like relationships, especially with Chris too. It's like, I feel like Nicole would have just sniffed out his bullshit pretty soon. You know, he was keeping up this web of lies for everyone, but how long can you keep that out when you're hanging out with someone every day? I think Nicole would have dumped him. Even if he didn't kill his family and they would have separated, I think Nicole would have hung out with him in his own place or something and been like, this is your place? Looks like a fucking lizard cage. And I think she would have been out, and he just would have been like alone in his bachelor pad being like, Cece and Bella? Just what a moron. And all right, let's keep going through this. So, they're telling, oh yeah, so the Ronnie brings up the doll with the blanket covering its face. And I could be wrong, but I've never read too much into the doll. I don't know. I think probably the kids were playing and it just something kind of funny and weird happened. And whether Chris sent a picture to Shannon to be like, look at this. And then Shannon, Shannon posts everything on Facebook. So she obviously posted on Facebook. And, but I don't know. I've heard people be like, Chris was sending secret messages to Shannon of like what was coming. I don't know if Chris has the capacity for secret messages. He doesn't seem like a secret message type of guy. And I just think that whenever a case is dissected this much, you're always going to have a few things that it's like, that's something crazy. That's it. The doll with the sheet. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know if that's anything. I don't think that that's Shannon saying, I'm going to kill the kids. And I don't know if that's Chris, like, sending her messages. Woo! I just think it was probably a weird little coincidence. Again, so Tammy and Graham are just turning up the pressure, like, just tell us where they are. We got to go get them. We know you're a good man. Just tell us where they are. And Chris is kind of just sticking with the, like, I don't know what to fucking do. Just lie crying. The old lie cry. And an interesting part about this little chunk is you get to see Chris. I think he does this a few times in the other one, too. You get to see what he sounds like when he does tell the truth. And so they'll ask him, like, did you put the kids in the tank alive? And he's like, no, God, no, God, no. And it's like, oh, that's what the truth sounds like. You go, no, God, no. And then when he lies, he's like, that's like something that honestly, like, I would never even do in my life, like, at all. Like, the difference between those two is hilarious. And it's like, I'm not even a trained FBI anything. I'm nothing. And I can see after 5 hours of watching Chris just being like, okay, we are in a lie. He's stammering like an idiot. And then it's like, oh, there's the truth. No, God, no. And so if I can already tell, Graham and Tammy are just sitting there like, Chris, this is embarrassing. Just tell us. All right. And then the huge straw that just doesn't let Chris's story about that Shannon did it comes to the forefront is, well, then why didn't you call 911? I think Graham uses the analogy, if my kid was decapitated, I will call 911, Chris. People that murder and don't call 911 always become experts, too, on dead bodies and knowing when they're dead and how long it takes. And the fact of the matter is, it takes a long time to strangle someone out like Chris did, and which is just terrifying. And that Shannon did it that quick, and then he ran in, and then he pulled Shannon off, and they were both just dead and gone and couldn't be helped. And it's like, it reminds me of that, you just gotta call 911. It reminds me of that case where there's that guy, he's an old Vietnam vet in Minnesota. And these young kids, like the Vietnam vet had owned a couple houses in the same neighborhood, and these kids in the neighborhood just kept robbing him. I don't know for sure, but they're probably drug addicts and just needed money for pills or something, and so they keep robbing this guy's houses, and it just drives this guy mad. Every time he goes into one of his houses, it's been ransacked, and one of his uniforms from the military, like a cool old jacket, was stolen, and he heard that this girl that he thought was robbing him was wearing it at school. So anyway, he I don't know how, but he feels like he has a feeling that they're going to rob him on Thanksgiving Day. So he turns all the lights off in his house and he hides in the basement with a gun. And when they come, he was right. When they break a window, they come in and he shoots the first one dead. And then the girl comes down and he shoots her and she goes down. And then instead of just calling 911, if he would have just called 911 right there, he probably would have just been okay defending his property, but instead he runs up, executes her. She's like, struggling from the first gunshot. He executes her, shoots her a bunch of times. And then again, instead of calling 911, he like drags the bodies out to a shed in the backyard and calls 911 the next day. And as soon as you don't call 911, you're probably going down for murder. The Dunn case, like the loud music, I think that he was in the wrong. I don't think that him calling 911 would have saved him for going to jail for life. But again, he got into a gunfight and didn't call 911. It's like instantly, it's like, all right, you look like a murderer. Why didn't you call 911, murderer? But again, Shanna Huber's psycho murderer lizard face as well. And she even has, look at an interview of Shanna Huber's, like recently, she has this like weird tongue lizard thing that she does. But again, she shoots her boyfriend. And then they were like, you didn't call 911? And she goes, no, I didn't want to see him twitching, so I shot him 5 more times. And he was really vain, and I shot him in the face, and he wouldn't have wanted to live with a messed up face. That's what she told the cops in her interrogation. And they just I just picture the cops like with their clipboard just circling like the murder box. Like, okay, we have a murderer. And all right, let's keep moving. So not calling 911 is you can't explain that away. It's just a sane person, if their kids are blue, will call 911. Or you would try to do CPR. Or you would try to do something. But just, they're blue. Check it. Ship it. They're blue. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so Chris kept saying, they're like, so what made Shannon snap? And he was saying, well, I wouldn't admit that I had the affair. And they're just like, that's not, you'd already talked about separation, so it wasn't news. And she had already talked to a realtor, so she had already been kind of processing this. So there's not really anything you could say like, we're getting separated even more, that morning, and she just snaps and kills the kids. It just makes zero sense. And it just, I don't know. As I finish this up, it's just such a pitiful end to a pitiful story of a pitiful man. You can't really blow it as hard as Chris just. And I wanted to talk about kind of one thing as I wrap the whole thing up is I think that it's really a brutal thing to go through is if a spouse doesn't get along with the other person's parents. I think it's very common. I'm sure a lot of you watching this either have a spouse that doesn't get along with your parents, or like my sister's husband doesn't really get along with my mom great, and it's just brutal. It's brutal to every time we hang out with each other. There's like this energy of just like, oh God, here we go again. And usually, I don't know enough about Shannon and Cindy Watt's relationship to even comment who was in the wrong. But usually, in my experience, it's both people could stand to cut the other person a break a little bit. It's like, Cindy, cut Shannon a break. She loves your son. She loves your grandbabies. She's a great mom. Can't you just turn on the charm and just, for the 5 days that you hang out, can't you just humor her? Even if you think the nut thing is, she's a little bit too headstrong with it, can't you just humor her? And Shannon, it's like, I don't know if you need to go and post every fight that you get with Cindy, like multiple paragraphs on Facebook, you know? Give Cindy a break. She has a lizard face, but other than that, it seems like she loves your grandbabies, and, you know, and she's Chris's mom. And it's like, I can't believe that they didn't go to the wedding. I think Ronnie would have gone to the wedding, but I'm sure just Cindy didn't want to. But it's like, Cindy, go to the wedding. What do you do on the day that your son is getting married? Just like sit home and watch daytime TV because you don't like Shannon? It's like Chris is saying, I do, getting married. You know, your son is getting married and you're home watching like Maury. Maury's like, you said you weren't the father of these 8 kids? That's a lie. And you're sitting there just like, it's like, that's just crazy to me. Fake it. Just go and turn on the charm. I don't understand. Like, oh yeah, the hair care products at 2:30 in the morning. I think that just proves that she didn't come in and go right to bed. So I don't know what it proves, but and anyway, and that takes us to Chris tells them finally, they bring in a picture, and he tells them where the body, it's funny because he looks at the picture and he goes, how long ago was this taken? And Tammy goes, today. It was today, Chris. We were already out there. We were so close anyway, so. He also left the sheet. They were like, why were the sheets in the trash? And he was like, I didn't know what to fucking do. I was just scared. And they're like, well, where's the other sheet? And he didn't even bury the sheet. I didn't even put that in the Chris Watts is not a smart man video. The bed sheet that matched the sheets in the trash was just sitting out there. I mean, I don't even know what to say to that. That's just the dumbest thing you can do. And then, you know, there's footage of him getting arrested, and he's just got that look on his face of just like, this is it for me. And there's just something so just lonely and sad and of just him getting arrested, and they bring him to the police station. He's just sitting there chained up alone, and it's like, yeah, Chris, this is your bed, and you gotta lay in it, and it's gonna be a real thin mattress with a terrible pillow, buddy. So, hope you don't have a bad neck, because this is it. And yeah, maybe I'm gonna do one more video on like his strategies that his lawyer used. But I mean, with that right there, I slogged through the entire interrogation. So thank you guys so much for being there with me and participating. I very much appreciate everybody that has subscribed. And yeah, thank you so much. True Crime Loser, out.